Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Caribbean Football Weekly Podcast, Episode 3, Season 3. This edition, we're here on Reggae Boyz commentary using Google Hangouts. Firstly, before we get into the show, I just want to say a big thank you to all the listeners and viewers. I reached a little bit over 700 subscribers, so I really appreciate the support that you have all given. Joining with me today is Santokie Nagulendran, all the way from London in England. Santokie, how are you?
I'm good, and firstly, congratulations, Simon, on the subscriber count. May you continue the good work. And I'd also like to apologise to fans for the slight delay in the broadcasting of this episode. There have been a few technical issues, but we're good to go for today.
Definitely. Thanks very much, Santokie. Much appreciated there. So Nathan has a bit of technical issues on his side, but hopefully that will be sorted out within the next couple of days or so. And for episode 4, we'll be back to normal. So that's definitely what we're hoping to accomplish. As we know, the usual sort of format for the show, we'll get into some news information and then we break down the biggest talking points in Caribbean football. So without further ado, Santokie, do you want to kick things off with news for us?
Yeah, well, we've had a flurry of news today in the Caribbean, and starting off, breaking news within the last hour. It's been rumoured for the past few days, but officially confirmed that Jamaican international Leon Bailey has officially joined German Bundesliga side Bayern Leverkusen for a fee of around 11 million English pounds. And he signed a 5-year contract, so running until 2022. So, Simon, I'd be interested to get your opinions. Do you think this is a good move for the young player?
I think it is a good move for him. I think he will get ample playing time. If you look at his body, the way that it's built, I think he will settle into the Bundesliga quite well. Other Jamaicans have gone on trials in the past, but have not done well because of their diminutive stature and not really been built physically. But Leon Bailey, you can see what he has produced in Belgium, that he has all the potential in this world to succeed at the highest level. One of the most outstanding prospects, you could say. And as you know, Nathan and you did a video recently about the Caribbean top young stars, and Leon Bailey was one of the first players mentioned on that list as well. So definitely an outstanding prospect, and I do think that he will be given the opportunity. I thought he was going to see out the season with KRC Genk and then move, but as it is right now, I'm quite content with the move, you could say. Following that on Santokie, what I wanted to ask you, because as you know, to play in England, you need a work permit, and if that is not satisfied as well, Jamaica, our country, would have to be ranked averaging in the 70s in the last 24 months or so. I would like to say, do you think for especially Caribbean players, do you think it's okay for them to try out Scandinavia or Eastern Europe before progressing for that opportunity in England, the Premier League, the Championship?
Yeah, well, I think it entirely depends on which team you join in Scandinavia or Eastern European. I think it's important that if you do join a team in, for instance, say the Czech Republic or Kazakhstan or Finland or one of these countries, it's important you join a team that's playing in the Europa League,
right,
at a minimum, just to get that exposure and kind of put yourself in a shop window. Because let's remember, although we live in a world full of technology, scouts aren't necessarily going to be watching, say, for instance, the Premier League in Kazakhstan where you may be playing. Whereas if you're in the Europa League and you play the likes of a Man United or a team from Belgium or France, then you're likely to get exposed, and that will obviously help your chances to develop a move in the future towards working in England. I do think Caribbeans are suited to playing in the English game. The ones that do come over, you've got, Dwight York is the obvious one, Ricardo Fuller, Kenwyne Jones in particular. He had the physical strength and the pace to kind of adapt well in the Caribbean, and that's a rare quality which I think is prominent throughout the region. It's just the opportunities aren't there at the moment, as you say, because of the work permit issues.
Right. It does take time, I must admit, that players in the Caribbean, we've seen them over time and time again getting their opportunities, but sometimes it is a little later in the career, late 20s or early 30s, this comes around, but you're just going to have to keep patient. And in Leon Bailey's case, I hope that he progresses and does very well in Germany. So let me say news on my end as well. We saw quite a bit of action in the FA Cup, but one of note, Jamaican international, we haven't seen him in Jamaican colours for quite some time, but he is a Jamaican international, Theo Robinson, scoring a goal for Lincoln and helping them to get into the 5th round of the FA Cup. They'll be playing Burnley in the next round. Santokie, did you see any games in the FA Cup in particular? Did you watch any? For me, I was quite impressed with Wycombe Wanderers against Tottenham and the way that Miles Weston, the Antiguan Barbudan player played, and he was trying to nutmeg in Eric Dyer and stuff. So he quite a bit of excitement. So for me, that was the highlight of the FA Cup 4th round for me. Did you see any action?
Yeah, well, as a Spurs fan, I can say that Wycombe game definitely did raise my blood pressure. But good win for Tottenham in the end. I did actually watch Leicester versus Derby, which was shown on national TV in England, and obviously Jamaican international Wes Morgan popped up with a goal there to take the game to a replay. Great header and kind of a reminder of what he's capable of. We haven't seen him season, but obviously last season he was quite a prominent threat in the air and from set pieces. So yeah, good goal from Wes Morgan in that game.
Definitely, all the best to Wes Morgan as well. They, as we know, Premier League champions. They're in the round of 16 of the Champions League and now in the round of 16 of the FA Cup as well. So exciting times ahead for him and the Foxes. And the last bit of news I have my end as well is that former Jamaican footballer who played the straight in England, Lindy De La Pena, he passed away at 89 years old. He passed away a few days ago on Thursday. He was the first Jamaican-born individual to play his trade in England. He was a striker. He scored loads and loads of goals. Only Ricardo Fuller and John Barnes, as Jamaican-born players, scored more goals than him in the English game. He also won the league with Portsmouth back in 1948-49. He played as a wing half. He also played as an inside forward. So quite a remarkable player throughout his period of time. Although he never made an appearance for the Jamaican national team, he is still, you could say, a pioneer for football players from the Caribbean, and he certainly represented us proudly. After his footballing career, he took up a career in broadcasting, commentating. He also did some punditry as well. So certainly an outstanding icon, you could say, to the region. And I was even tweeting one of the co-owners of Portsmouth, and they were planning a minute silence for him. So I find that quite touching as well, that they remember him and for all the success that he did, because that was basically the only time that Portsmouth won the league. I mean, bar that, you look back at their FA Cup triumph back in 2008. But certainly Santokie has been a wonderful player for the Caribbean. Even Nathan, in the home of the Caribbean football, his website, he's even spoken about Lindy De La Pena in the past.
Yeah, a fantastic player and a legend in the Caribbean game, and also again it shows you his character, that he was loyal to Portsmouth and turned down a big money move to Man United, which doesn't often happen in the modern game.
That's right. And just to elaborate a bit for the listeners as well and the viewers about that move, after his time at Portsmouth, where he spent a few seasons, Manchester United came in for an offer for him, but he felt so grateful for his opportunity to play professionally in England and with Portsmouth that he decided to stay on. So he rejected a move to Man United, and can you believe it? Just a few years after that, it was the plane crash. So he said in an interview with Jamaican broadcaster and media personality Faye Ellington that he dodged a bullet in that essence there. So quite interesting the way things could have planned out if other decisions had been made. He also had a spell at Middlesbrough as well, where he was a top scorer for 3 seasons. So he's had quite a bit of, you could say, he's been a caliber player and quite a bit of experience throughout the English game. Although I felt that he didn't get much opportunities at Portsmouth, as the first season he only played a handful of appearances. Later on at Middlesbrough, he got more playing time. But certainly, he did quite a bit for Jamaica, and as Santokie rightly said, a legend of the game. Now, that brings us nicely into one of our key topic areas for today. We will discuss the Caribbean Cup. Almost a week ago, we were able to find out the semi-final pairings for the Caribbean Cup. So we're going to have Jamaica, the Reggae Boyz. They're going to take on French Guyana. And in the other semi-final, we're going to have Martinique taking on Curacao. Santokie, your initial thoughts of the pairings, the semi-final pairings for these semi-finals?
I think immediately, I think Jamaica have been handed a favourable tie. I think French Guyana, whilst they're a strong team, of the 4, I think Jamaica, of the 3 other teams, I think Jamaica would be pleased with having been drawn against French Guyana, and I fancy Jamaica to make the final. Curacao Martinique will be a tough game. I mean, among the praises of Curacao since the show started. They're a strong team, attacking team. But also, let's not forget we've underestimated Martinique in the past. In the final qualifying round, I remember I thought Trinidad and Tobago were a guaranteed win against Martinique, and they won 2-0 with a great clean sheet and great tactical play. So Martinique have proven time and time again they're not a team to underestimate. So that will be an interesting battle. I'd fancy Curacao to, but it could go either way in my opinion. Very tough. Simon, what are your initial opinions on this draw?
It was very tough as well, to be honest with you. You look at these four teams and you had to say that no matter the way that you reshuffle or rearrange it, you're definitely going to have two semifinals of tough matches based on we saw from these teams from the earlier rounds, the third round, the second round, and the preliminary first round. I think Martinique has it in their hands for this tournament as well as Jamaica. Let's not forget as well the home advantage that Martinique has. Quite puzzling because we initially thought that it was going to be hosting the east coast of the United States, but it appears not, as the CFU sent out a press release saying that it will be in Fort-de-France in Martinique in June. My personal thoughts about this, when I saw French Guyana as well, I had some butterflies in my stomach, to be quite honest with you, because French Guyana has proven to be a real dark horse of this tournament. We saw the way that they dispatched of Haiti in Haiti, and also getting past the likes of St. Kitts and Nevis as well. So I do see them as a threat as well. It's quite difficult to say what the final would be, but if I had to say throw my neck out on the line, I would go personally with a Jamaica versus Martinique sort of final. You look at Julien Faubert, who's an asset with Martinique. He's found a club now in Scandinavia, compared to the earlier rounds where he was unattached, so some rustiness was there, but now he'll be quite active and more on his toes, a bit sharper, more agile. So for me, I'm at this stage now in January, I'd go with a Jamaica Martinique final, which would be a clash of two teams that have won the tournament before.
I'd be interested to get your opinion, Simon, on whether you think Martinique is a good host to host the Caribbean Cup finals. Were you expecting it, and why do you think the CFU have decided to go with Martinique in the end?
Yeah, very difficult questions you asked there, Santokie. You know, Martinique has had history in hosting the final round of the Caribbean Cup back in 2010. They hosted the final round of the Caribbean Cup and also in Fort-de-France as well. So they do have experience and pedigree in hosting tournaments, especially Caribbean events across the regions like Carifta Games, which is the athletics, track and field sort of championship. So they do have experience in hosting many sort of Caribbean sort of tournaments. So from that aspect, I don't have a problem with that. I was quite shocked at the way that it was done. It was quite last minute in announcing it, because we've heard little stories here and there about East Coast in the United States, or little things like that. US Virgin Islands even came to mind. So for me, the shock was that CFU just sprung it up out of nowhere. And my thing against it going to be one of the four teams. Why not to be on neutral soil for another Caribbean team? Why on Tobago perhaps, or Barbados, knowing that those teams don't have a chance to go to the Gold Cup or win the Caribbean Cup? Because you look at Martinique, you have to say it's an advantage for them, because home advantage with them as well. They know the facilities, the culture, the fans. So it's playing in their hands quite well. So you have to say that it is a blessing for Martinique. As far as your last question is concerned, why it would be in CFU, it's quite difficult to answer, because is CFU trying to give other Caribbean teams an opportunity of hosting it? Jamaica had it in 2014, Antigua 2012, 2010. We had it in Martinique, as I said, 2008 in Jamaica, 2007 in Trinidad and Tobago, 2005 in Barbados. Maybe just to move it around the region, give everybody an opportunity. That would be my best opinion on that matter.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're trying to kind of spread the game around the region. Although, as you say, it was very strange, the nature of how they released information. It was kind of last minute, not very much media coverage towards there. And you kind of get the opinion that the Caribbean Cup's become an afterthought in terms of when you compare it to the Gold Cup. It seems that it's almost become forgotten.
Yeah, that's a good point you made there. I just feel that there has to be more publicity around it and surrounding it, especially with social media and the spreading of information, news story. newspaper articles on the matter, just to give people the hype about the sort of tournament as well. You know, Jamaica is in the
Yeah.
semi-finals of the Caribbean Cup. We have two less titles than Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago has 8 titles, Jamaica 6, and it's in Jamaica right now. It's quite lukewarm, the feeling going into the tournament. I mean, we're 180 minutes away from 7 Caribbean Cup titles. This should be story writing. We're on the brink of passing Trinidad and Tobago, of being the most successful team in the region, and there's not much coverage about it. And to me, I'm quite irate about the matter, because it's Caribbean football. It's a national team, and there's not really much given emphasis about it. And that's my downfall with this whole sort of tournament, you could say.
I'd be interested to know if the final four were, for instance, Jamaica, Trinidad, Cuba, and Haiti, the so-called Big Four of the region.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see whether they would actually hold that tournament in the USA.
That would have been interesting. Yes, I'd have loved to have seen that. We haven't got much details of that matter. So, and even as we saw Santokie with the 5th-round playoffs, it was in Trinidad and Tobago, alongside we saw with Suriname and Haiti as well. That was a quite bizarre sort of choice as well, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, Trinidad CFU do tend to kind of prefer Eastern events, I guess, because Trinidad have excellent facilities and numerous stadiums which they use in the Pro League, which can also be used to host international games. So that did lead to my thinking, whereas is it the absence of Trinidad and Haiti and Cuba, who have a lot of diaspora in the USA, the absence of those teams kind of made CFU think it wasn't financially logical to host it in the USA because there wouldn't be much crowds, or Curacao.
Perhaps,
So
yeah.
that could be a reason why they've kind of shifted it back to the Caribbean region.
Yeah, it's a good point. Perhaps they did their market research on the different areas, East Coast wise, would have been New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Florida, and seeing the support and what it could have been and all of that. So perhaps you can say it is a good move for Martinique. I personally have no problem with it whatsoever. I just wish that information was communicated about this a bit earlier and not sort of last minute, like we've seen in the past with draws for other CFU tournaments in the past.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking about CFU tournaments, we've had an interesting update to the CFU Club Championship, which starts in about 3 weeks' time. So, Simon, do you want to fill the viewers in with some info about what's happened with Puerto Rico FC?
Yes, certainly. Well, as we know, a couple of shows ago, we discussed about Puerto Rico FC and not being involved in this edition of the tournament, and Nathan was making the point that a member of Puerto Rico FC's management team, you could say, will be trying to speak to Mr. Victor Montagliani about the actual tournament itself and why is it that a Puerto Rican team is not involved, because as we know in the past, Puerto Rican teams have been the heartbeat, you could say, of Caribbean teams in this sort of tournament, where in the past we've seen the Puerto Rico Islanders, for an example, reach the semifinals in one edition of the tournament. But as this year, Puerto Rico FC, they're added to the Caribbean Club CFU Club Championship field, and it is a wonderful prospect for them moving into tournament. So basically, what has happened, as Puerto Rico FC are the champions of that tournament, the Copa Luis Villarejo, they'll represent Puerto Rico in the CONCACAF, the CFU Club Championship, which will kick off next month. And with that edition, we'll now have 21 clubs within the tournament, alongside, as we know, Central FC are the champions of this sort of. Puerto Rico FC will now host Group D, which will be at Estadio Juan Ramel Lubril Stadium between March 14th to 18th. So, Santokie, does their tournament, would you say, affect you? Are you happy that they're involved, or would you have preferred that spot to go to another Caribbean club?
No, I'm very happy that Puerto Rico FC have been entered in the tournament. They bring a lot of coverage to the tournament. I mean, I know we talked about the Caribbean Cup not having much coverage. The CFU Club Championship also doesn't receive much coverage, and so who are owned by NBA star Anthony Carmelo, and with them playing in the USA, they'll have a lot of fans as well. So that will bring coverage to the tournament, and there are masses of fans who will watch them play against teams which a lot of which a lot of fans probably don't know exist. I mean, when they play Scholars International, for instance, I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of fans in Puerto Rico and America would never have heard of this club. So yeah, on that scale, it will bring much needed coverage to the tournament, and also a degree of professionalism. There's not many clubs in the tournament who are full-time professional, and we've got Puerto Rico now entering the tournament. I do feel that they will progress Champions League, and then they will be able to represent CFU in a stronger manner than other teams have in the past, purely because they're a full-time professional team and have very quality players. Yeah, so very interesting developments, but I am very happy that Puerto Rico FC have been reinstated into the CFU Club Championships. Simon, where do you think they'll finish in the group? Do you think Portmore have a chance of defeating them?
It's a very difficult one, you know. Let's not forget as well, we have Transvaal of Suriname also in that group. Based on the way things are right now, I think Portmore United is pushing for the Red Stripe Premier League. They're doing quite well in their regional Red Stripe Premier League in Jamaica. So I'm going to give Portmore United to come second in that group and Puerto Rico FC to come first. So the only Jamaican representative I see moving on would be Montego Bay United.
And good news for Central as well, because they've now avoided playing through groups. They've gone straight through to the final round, and so they're in the final 5, and 4 of those teams will go through to the CONCACAF Champions League. So they must fancy their chances of progressing to that tournament.
Certainly, they do have quite a bit of pedigree in this region as well. They've done quite well in past CONCACAF sort of events as well, sneaking a win here and there. So for me, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for them pressing forward. So it'll be interesting to see how that they have that sort of 5-team sort of group, you could say. Will it be one big group of 5 teams, well, 6 teams you could say, or you're going to have 2 groups of 3? That final round, Santokie, how do you think that it can be to, you know, add a bit of symmetry to this final round?
I really can't think of a way which would suit all the parties. I mean, if you had a group of 5,
yeah,
4 games, but it's such a short space of time. I don't know whether that would work. As you say, we could have a group of 3.
Yeah.
And then another two-legged playoff with 2 teams. But again, that could lead to complaints from the teams who are put in a group of 3 as opposed to playing in a group of 2. So very interesting situation for the final round. It'll be interesting to see what happens. My gut feeling is it hasn't been revealed yet by the CFU, because they probably haven't worked out what is the best way to approach the final round. I also read an article about Montego Bay United struggling to find money to host the groups. So they got $104,000 as a grant to host the group, but they still need more money, which kind of goes to show how financially taxing it is to host a group in the CFU Club Championships, whereas which is kind of goes unnoticed in the region because it's such a seemingly small tournament, but it does have a financial impact for these clubs.
It certainly does. You know, Jamaican clubs in the past have pulled out of this tournament because of the financial burden of it all, the traveling expenses, accommodation, per diems, food. So it is a toll, but I was hoping that CFU would cover all the costs fully for these teams. And you look at the Caribbean islands across the region, they're relatively close to each other. You look at Jamaica, that's basically a 1-hour flight to Cuba. If we're going to Puerto Rico, it's just a shade over 2 hours. You go to Trinidad and Tobago, just almost 3 hours. So it's relatively close, and you'd think that perhaps an airline like Liat or Caribbean Airlines would come on board and play some support in it, because I think that airlines like those could be a helping hand moving forward. Fly Jamaica, another example. So there are opportunities out there, but I do think that the regional organization, the governing body, CFU, needs to press for these other incentives and sponsorships so that it can be a tournament worth watching and teams can have no hassle moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And again, that's linked to what we've kind of discussed this show. Terms of media, effective media and marketing,
right,
to kind of make this seem like a tournament which sponsors would want to invest in. At the moment, I don't feel that there's enough coverage for businesses to kind of feel that it's worth investing in. So that's something the CFU need to look at. And it also explains why CONCACAF are so keen in regards to marketing and organizing events in the CFU region, because obviously they can see potential that is not currently being realized by the CFU executives in terms of marketing. So that's something we'll talk about later in the show, the CFU breakaway from CONCACAF. But I just wanted to look at this moment, the CONCACAF Champions League, Simon. So that's had a format change. Do you want to explain to the viewers how this format change is going to work for the 2017-18 season?
Quite interesting, because if you look at this sort of change, Nathan explained it best, where you basically have like what we have in UEFA, mini Europa League, you could say, so to speak. So back in December last year, the president of the Nicaragua Football Federation spoke about a new format for the show, for the tournament as itself. So CONCACAF confirmed where you would be eliminating the group stage, which had been employed since the rebranding of the CONCACAF Champions League in 2008. So basically what we're going to have 31 teams involved. We're going to have 9 teams from North America, 18 from Central America, and 4 from the Caribbean. Still, I'm quite iffy about this, because you have the Caribbean region that represents CONCACAF, about 70% of the members. You would think that we would have more members. So for me, I'm still quite shocked about that. But regardless of the situation, I'm happy that at least one more Caribbean team will be involved moving forward, and I wish it was spaced out a bit more. But you have a first phase, you have a second phase, and definitely the knockout phases to come from there. So basically a synopsis of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of CONCACAF's way of saying that the MLS at the moment and the Mexican League is too strong for the rest of the region. So what they've done is limited the amount of matches those teams will play. So MLS teams now will come in straight to the second phase and only play from February to May, whereas in previous seasons they were playing from August all the way through to May, a season-long campaign. So they've reduced the workload of the MLS and Mexican teams, and I guess they've also tried to add a competitive aspect to it by having a first stage purely made up of Central American and Caribbean teams. I mean, we've often talked in the past of Caribbean teams getting destroyed by MLS teams or Mexican teams when they play them in the groups. So maybe this could benefit the development of CFU by facing teams who, whilst are stronger in Central America, they're not as strong as MLS or Mexican sides. Simon, do you agree? Do you think this new format change benefits Caribbean teams, or do you think the system still needs to be looked at as to how they can the CFU teams kind of bridge the gap between themselves and the rest of CONCACAF?
Marginally, yes, I would say that it's helping the Caribbean because more teams are involved. However, you can say that it doesn't benefit them much, because we're having a similar sort of situation. They're going to end up playing the same teams in Central America and North America, such as the MLS and Canadian teams and all of that. So Nathan stressed the point a couple of weeks about professionalizing the game with clubs in the Caribbean. We still have a huge percentage of the Caribbean players that play within the Caribbean. They have 9-to-5 jobs. Their professions, football is not dedicated to them full time. So when they have time to play football, they're quite tired and famished sometimes as well. So if we can find a way where players are paid better and ensure that they get the support that they deserve, then I think moving forward, Caribbean teams have an opportunity, because Caribbean teams haven't thrived in this tournament since the 70s and 80s. So things have to change again, back to swing for the Caribbean.
Yeah, so it will definitely be interesting to see how this unfolds next season. Also, it'll be CFU Club Championships final stage that bit more important. In the past, the 2 teams that have got to a final have kind of always been confident anyway, because they know that they're assured of a place in the CONCACAF Champions League group stage. But now we'll have the situation where the winner of the final of the CFU Club Championship will go straight to the second phase and have the big money ties against MLS and Mexican teams. So that does trickle down, and have the new format does trickle and add a bit of competitive edge to the final of the CFU Club Championship.
Yes, and let's not forget as well, the winner of that 2017-2018 CONCACAF Champions League will advance to the 2018 edition of the FIFA Club World Cup as well. So another opportunity there as well for a Caribbean player or Caribbean team to strut their stuff against the best on this planet, the best team in UEFA, Central America, Africa, Oceania, etc. So basically on that matter, Santokie, I wanted to share with you this as well as it related to the CFU teams. What I wanted to ask you, right now in that 2017-2018 edition, we're going to have 4 CFU teams. Is there a number that you have in your mind that you say, yes, we should have this number of Caribbean teams moving forward? Because personally, I think there should be no less than 8 Caribbean teams in every CONCACAF event moving forward. Are you on the same wavelength as me, or do you think 4 is okay for now?
It's kind of a tricky situation, because as you say, the Caribbean teams underperform in these tournaments, and so that's kind of like CONCACAF's way of justifying only 4 teams being in it. But then you could argue the more teams that are allowed into the tournament, the more chance there is for them to develop. And as you said earlier, with the CFU making such a large percentage of the CONCACAF region, it does seem slightly absurd that only 4 teams of such a big tournament are actually from the CFU. It's not reflective of the majority stake that the CFU does have in CONCACAF. So on that level, yes, I do think it's unfair. I would like to see 7 or 8 teams in these tournaments, just to reflect the amount of islands and federations within the CONCACAF region.
Yes, I agree with you there where that is concerned. I would love to see a day, maybe a decade down the road, where similar like we see in the UEFA Champions League, where you have the first qualifying round, second qualifying round, etc., where you have teams, for example, like from San Marino, Moldova, Andorra, etc. I would love to see a day where you have that in CONCACAF, where you have the first qualifying round, you may have a match between Scholars International against Alpha United. I would love to see a tournament like that where you have 60 odd teams and then you condense it as the tournaments progress. Do you think we can see that in the Caribbean moving forward, Santokie?
I was going to say, especially with CONCACAF looking to organize CFU tournaments, I would say maybe make the CFU Club Championship, overhaul it, and kind of make it part of the CONCACAF Champions League. So rename the stage, instead of having a Caribbean CFU Club Championship like group stage, as we're going to see next month. Rename it CONCACAF Champions League qualifying, round 1, round 2, round 3. That provides straight away. It provides an image boost to the competition. I mean, fans of MLS teams or teams in Central America may now want a glimpse of that tournament to see which opponents they could face in the future. And it will also add a boost to players. They can kind of say, yeah, we're taking part in this CONCACAF Champions League. The sky is the limit now. We're part of this tournament. And yeah, so I think an overhaul of maybe the CFU Club Championship and just turn it, rebrand it, use the CONCACAF Champions League symbol, rebrand it as a qualifying round, will add that needed prestige to the tournament.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Would you then say that perhaps these would definitely go straight into a group stage format, but the Caribbean sort of format is 1 round prior? Is it? Am I on the same track there?
Hello. Hello.
Okay.
Oh, you've kind of your microphone's gone. I can't really hear you anymore. Hello. It's completely mumbled up. I can't make out anything you're saying.